Okay, so I want to read you guys something, and basically I want to interpret it as, the small success that we have in our lives is the greatest success. And keep that in mind. Basically the quote goes, and this is just something I thought of, and something that tied everything together on what I'm about to start talking about. So it goes, the greatest success is furthering opportunity that leads to the ultimate level or the maximum state that can be reached. Basically, all the little successes that we have are really the best ones, because every single step we take, when you're talking about, a gradual incline, the little things from the spelling test from grade 2, or the math midterm from junior high, in a narrow view, it doesn't really seem like a whole lot, because those are just the beginning stages, and that doesn't really seem like a big deal once you get to, once you're in college or whatever. It's the little steps that you were taking in the very beginning. If it wasn't for that moment in which you became successful, you never would have made it to college. You never would have, been able to have moved on and ultimately reached the last level of the entire game if you hadn't first gotten past those initial stages. Now, an argument could be made that in every game there's a cheat, there's little shortcuts here and there, but in order to be really successful, in order to really hone the game, in order to really master the craft, everybody knows that you have to be able to know those little steps inside out. It's a matter of just getting past those initial stages, so in the future, or when the time comes when you're getting to those final crucial confrontations of challenges, then you can say, well, I'm ready for it because I was able to work up from it, and it all derived from those initial baby steps. And that kind of relates into some of the stuff I'm going to be talking about. And that also, an old friend of mine, Brian Lurie, basically we did a lot of maybe not a lot of musical projects, but we did have participation in a lot of common performances. Whether he was doing sound for an old band of mine, or we were bandmates at one point, and that was really cool. Or sometimes I would just get a kick out of watching him play and stuff, because I always considered him to be such a kick-ass musician. And I mean that sincerely. He's just a cool dude. He's always been like one of my favorite personalities, just because of his raw, opinionated nature, and at the same time, he's a fun guy. His way of wording things is not one to shy away from. He doesn't give a shit if it's gonna make you laugh or it's gonna throw you back a bit, because it's what he thinks. And I definitely relate to him on that level. I wish I could do that with more people. And so, in talking about the whole rant from last time about how luck is basically opportunity meets preparedness, or in the way that I worded it last time, success, being lucky enough to have success, is basically you meeting your opportunities with how prepared you are. And so I want to talk about a case in which I can honestly extend that topic into something else, which is basically sort of touching upon that quote that I just read to you guys, or the quote that I, you know, use to sum up some of what's going to be talked about. But also, I've been more unsuccessful. You know, I've been unsuccessful more times than I have been successful. And, you know, truth be told, those are the things you learn most from, because the more you lose, the more you learn. And so when you finally start winning more consistently, you know, and people say, wow, that person is really great, one never stops to think about how many times, you know, you had to really fail at the craft before you really became good at it. How many times you had to fucking get set back or stumble on before you became fluent at it. And so I want to share some of the experiences, and it kind of ties into some of one of the activities that I shared with Ryan, and how I was unsuccessful out of my own unpreparedness. But at the same time, I feel very fortunate, very lucky in that I was able to get, you know, basically the fact that I was presented that opportunity, I would consider that a success in and of itself. And so let me start like this. Ryan and I'm not gonna mention names because I don't, you know, I don't want to sound like I'm trying to throw shade or nothing like that, because this is not what this channel is about. I always, as opinionated as I am, I want to be as unjudgmental as possible, you know, regardless of what my emotions are telling me, just for the very sake of not making anybody, you know, just uncomfortable. I know that doesn't say a lot coming from me. I'm not gonna name any names besides Ryan. So basically, so I used to play in this band, and we would often do shows in which a friend of mine who happens to be a solo artist, a singer, you know, we would do shows together, and you know, obviously different separate, you know, individual sets, but you know, we were always intrigued in sharing a performance together, and we were, you know, I've always wanted to further my knowledge and my experience. You know, I knew that in sharing the stage with musicians that were fairly above my skill set would be beneficial in furthering my, you know, my own skill level. And so, and I knew that the band that played with the singer, a couple of them, or my buddies from years ago, and also you know, they were also some pretty some higher grade musicians, and so I wanted the opportunity to play with them, to advance myself, you know, and so, and he, I guess, in his, you know, as gracious as he was to, I don't know what it was that he saw in me, that he was gracious enough to let me be part of all that. And I felt good, because I felt, and I still do, I felt that through whatever my ambitions was, whatever my hunger was for pursuing further, not just further aspirations, but my preparedness to move forward in my skill as a musician, was, it allowed me to, I would imagine that it played a big role in joining a more advanced band. So I was definitely really grateful for the opportunity to play with those guys, because, hey, first off, I love the whole R&B vibe. I love the whole black gospel groove music and stuff. And you know, it's not to sound cheesy or nothing, but I'm definitely an old soul when it comes to my musical preferences. I'm totally into the whole old school groove type stuff, and it's just something you can like gently bop your head to, and I'm all about that. And we had some really cool gigs with those guys, but somewhere along the lines, I started really slacking when I was starting to dip my foot into way too many projects, and started splitting my focus way too many different ways. And I can definitely say Ryan called me on it, and some of the other guys did. I know the singer guy himself was kind of a shady bastard about it, and I don't wish him any type of misfortune for what he did. You know, everyone gets their own, and he's gonna learn, if he hasn't already, that you don't be sneaky about that kind of business, because it'll bite you in the ass. And that's not what this is about. It's more about me. It's more about how I put myself in that spot in the first place, because I was given an opportunity, and you know, I had all the advantage in the world, but I didn't prepare myself for it. The idea of advancing sounded good to me, and you know, I was given a ticket that I didn't know. I wasn't aware that, you know, it required a certain level of focus, and you know, I wasn't aware of the level of dedication it would require me to be able to keep up with these guys, and you know, thus advancing me. And so I was definitely unprepared in that regard. I definitely learned a lot. I learned a lot, and it sucks to know that, you know, I wasn't able to carry on with those guys. I wasn't able to further myself in music with the companionship of those guys. I really enjoy the camaraderie and the level of knowledge that those guys were bestowing on me through just sharing jams and sharing the opportunity to perform together. But at the same time, you know, that opened my eyes that through being in a lesser acknowledged musical act, I was, you know, thriving to be successful with them. I was able to be recognized and be considered acceptable to be put in another level, in a higher level of musical advancement. Now, in that regard, that's kind of the big picture of what I'm trying to get across. You know, when you take little steps, when you become successful in the little things that, you know, are ultimately, you know, little stepping stones that are ultimately little building blocks to a bigger thing, then that's honestly, that's the greatest, that's honestly the ultimate, you know, reward. That's the most complimentary thing to your own life that you can do. Anytime I learn a new technique in my training, it's furthering me to what I can have in my palette, thus taking my career further. Every single lick, every single riff or note or technique that I learned in music, you know, is furthering you to the possibilities of what you can do, of what you can show when it's time to perform and advance yourself. And that's what it's all about. You know, in a ritualistic setting, there's a word called sacrament, which oddly enough I learned through the Lamb of God album. Big time metalhead, by the way. Yeah, sacrament. It's basically you completing not just a ritual, a furthering, an establishment of your craft, an establishment of another step ahead of what you're trying to accomplish is ultimately what you should feel as rewarding, because every single step is what's taking you to the finish line. It's not standing around and analyzing what you need to do. It's not the thought process. It's the actual steps that you're taking forward. It's the actual bundle of accomplishments that ultimately add up and lead to the goal. If you're thriving to reach the goal, then every single ounce of energy and every single distance traveled, whether it's emotionally, whether it's psychologically, whether it's mentally, yada yada yada, the list goes on, even just literally. I'm not about to start hiking a mountain and expect myself to get there with one step. I have to freaking climb over a shitload of rocks. I have to walk upward through a shitload of hills, through different inclinations, through different surfaces, through different levels of stable ground. Every single chunk of my path is what ultimately leads to the final destination, per se. And here's a really good example. A really good teacher, and I'll use guitar as an example. A really good teacher is going to show you a very complicated passage or a very long lick or a long riff and break it down in small groups of notes or small group of keys. And he's gonna break it down, run by run. He's not just gonna teach you how to do this scorching solo, and go from note 1 to note 20, whatever, and just be like, okay, ready, set, go, do it. He's gonna break it down. He's gonna go, the really good ones are gonna go probably every 4 notes. He's gonna go do 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 do. Learn it, do 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 do. Okay, next one is do 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 do. And even if that one is so slow, then it'll break it down and it'll slow that tempo down, and you'll freaking break down the notes, actually verbally tell you what the notes are, and until you've mastered those 4, and then those 6, and then another 4, and then another, and then he'll walk through every single technique, wherever there's a bend, or wherever there's a vibrato, or wherever there's a little shimmy, wherever there's a slide. He's gonna break those down, where they go, how they go, what kind of a rest or a gap period there is, where is there a slowdown, where is there a pickup, where is there a every single thing. And so once you've mastered the whole thing, he'll go from the very beginning and he'll play it through with you very, very slowly at probably half the speed, to where it doesn't even sound musical, but as long as you get all the fingering correctly, and then he'll speed it up a little bit. And then eventually where you'll end up is where you can play the whole thing by yourself, note for note, technique by technique, at speed. And then once you get through the whole lick, you should be able to play along with the tab, or with the piece of music, or with the track. And then by the time that difficult lick comes by, then all of a sudden you could play this thing that wasn't even imaginable to you when you first started. And you can apply that process to anything, to whatever the craft is. It's all a matter of breaking it down, because ultimately, when you want to get to a high level of whatever the craft is, it's a matter of achieving and being successful at the small bits of it. The ultimate reward should be, what's rewarding for you is getting past the small steps that basically further the opportunities, so that later on you've reached ultimate success. When you've reached that maximum level to where, you know, you're at the final stage, to where when you've hit there, when you've gotten past that last, you know, when you've gotten to the big boss and you've beat the game and you consider yourself to be successful, oh buddy, what greater feeling could there possibly be? But the problem is nobody stops to think about it, you know? You're not about to go to someone who just got their master's degree or got their doctorate or their, you know, their diploma, or just graduated med school, or just, you know, graduated Harvard or whatever these fucking big schools are. You're not about to go to them and be like, hey man, you remember when you first were going to preschool, or when you were first getting taught that 1 is equal to 2, and you were fucking mind blown by that shit? Nobody stops to think about it. If you break it down into that, it might just be a little bit easier. It might, you know, life might not feel that hard anymore, because once you realize that it's all a bunch of little steps leading up to one great big reward, then you might think to yourself, well, this is just another step. In a certain time from now, I'm gonna be looking back at this feeling like this is easy compared to where I'm gonna be at that point. I could be looking back, and where I was a certain time ago, well, I'm way past that, and it all sounds easy to me now. Where I'm going to be is that much further. I guess it ultimately turns into a lesson of creating something big out of a lot of little things. And for those of you who know about construction, making a structure, creating something big and potent being a key word here, is something that's durable, something that's substantial, isn't made of few big parts. It's made of a shitload, and I mean a ton of tiny little pieces that are, you know, first and foremost made sure that they're binded together properly. They're binded together, you know, securely, you know. That's something, and that's how you accomplish the big things. You master the small parts of it, and then you could put it all together to create this grand masterpiece. That's ultimate. That's really, you know, in the big picture, that's what ultimate success is. You know, when they say nothing good comes quick, you know, all the great things in life come through time. That's because it takes time to do a lot of small little detailed and tedious things. Because if it's quick and easy, trust me, it is not going to last. And I know all too well about that.